introduced Paul Longley from CDRC, who is going to talk to us about the paper. I tabled the papers in the email, so you should have already seen them. So, Paul, you're on.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jan, and I'm conscious of your time, so I'll really just breeze through the document that was pre-circulated with the papers. So, for those of you that don't know me, I've had quite a long association with Doug over the years. I know quite a few of you, and in 2014. A big research council initiative was established called the Consumer Data Research Centre, where basically we try and get hold of data from business, public sector and administrative sources, mix them together and make things happen with them, really. So it's a centre for sort of researching the provenance, the application, and the use of consumer data sources, along with other things. So the document really just sort of sets out just some of our recent, fairly recent activities, and the main one, I think, really. Perhaps for a little bit of discussion is the master's dissertation scheme. So Keith Dugmore and I actually established this prior to the establishment of CDRC, and I think it's now it's currently in its 9th year. And as I say in the document, this year's actually been a record, really, notwithstanding all the issues of pandemics and so forth. We've actually got 22 dissertations being done with external organisations, that's businesses and companies, which were awarded competitively to 67 student applications. So the issue here is what happens, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, is a company agrees to pay a notional honorarium of £500 to a student for successful completion of a master's dissertation as part of their projects, which typically deal with horizon scanning issues that an organisation wants to find out about, but probably wouldn't allocate staff time explicitly to deal with. And over the years, it's proved to be a very successful initiative, with many of the students, and this is a point I'll come back to, being subsequently offered jobs with the organisation with which they undertake a master's dissertation. Because in a way, going back to what Martin was just saying about, sort of how you learn and how somebody, how somebody fits into a job and so forth. This is an opportunity, in a way, to test drive a motivated and interested student for 3 or 4 months and see whether they're employable. And so the scheme, as I say, it's a nationwide one. It's interdisciplinary. It's not just geography, it's computer science, it's economics, it's psychology, etc., etc. And students come from all parts of the UK, and there's a list in the paper that was circulated. And so far, so standard a report. But what we actually did this year is we sort of thought, well, we've been running this scheme now for 9 years. What we'll do is we'll establish an alumni network. And so the idea here was really, first of all, from the point of view of our own interest and curiosity, to see where students who had worked on this scheme have ended up, and we knew some of them had ended up on working for their original dissertation sponsor, but others sort of move organisations and so on and so forth. And so we held an inaugural, basically we've developed a LinkedIn list of contacts of names of students and organisations that they work for. And what we did a couple of months back, Jonathan Reynolds at the Said Business School, who's one of the co-investigators on CDRC, hosted an online event. We got one of the usual suspects. Martin Squires is a visiting professor at UCL, so we lent on him to give a talk, and we had a series of really where are they now presentations, along with presentations by the best dissertations from last year's students. And I don't know what Martin thought in retrospect, but I think in general terms, the feedback that we got was very good, and it's something that we want to do sort of going forward. And so a question for Jan and for Doug, I suppose, really, sort of time moves on and so forth. And I'm aware you've got your the Doug conference is online this October. We do need to take a decision pretty soon whether we're going to keep the master's dissertation scheme in harness with the Doug annual conference. And one thing we could actually perhaps consider talking about, we've got an alumni list, as I say, of sort of bright young things who've done relevant dissertations, which is a nice way of sort of infusing perhaps a bit of young blood into the Doug annual conference itself, and also infuse some blood in terms of Doug recruitment, in terms of sort of these organisations and so forth. And so those are conversations that I think we need to come up with pretty soon, because the Oxford event worked extremely well. It was run extremely professionally. We got technicians and so forth in to do it. What we, I hear what people have been murmuring about future lockdowns and things like that. If we load up, a series of students to give presentations and get people plumbed into attending, we have got to be, excuse me, pretty sure that stuff sort of actually happens as advertised, and that's a problem that I know we're all juggling with. So those are the first two items on my report. The third one is something that we did, which is fairly self-explanatory. We did a sort of a project funded by the Research Council called Local Data Spaces, where 4 CDRC data scientists were basically seconded to support local authority COVID-19 responses. And so here, local authority research bases have been hollowed out very much over the last decade with successive local authority cuts. And we did a series of projects of extending research capacity to local authority COVID responses. And I stuck in the report a couple of illustrative examples of this. We've now got, coming out of this, a dashboard which allows local authorities to look at how their footfall decreased relative to overall decreases across all local authorities in the UK, for example. And so there's a few nice products in that. The other items relate to some of our another scheme that we got involved in with Research Council support, which is called our ABC scheme, Accelerating Business Collaboration. And what here, working with Matthew Hopkinson, ex of Local Data Company and now Didobi, we developed a student ambassador scheme where PhD students who were doing research which was relevant to the business community were actually seconded to business organisations for a period of 6 weeks to do relevant projects that were relevant that demonstrated the impact of the PhDs, but also did stuff that were relevant to the supervising organisations. And there's a couple of examples pasted into the report about COVID resilience of commuter towns, how some commuter towns have fared much better in sort of post-COVID compared to others. There's another one talking about an audit for, I think, geolytics about different in-app data providers and so forth, and the robustness and resilience of the data sources. We're also doing other stuff, sort of horizon scanning stuff on. We're currently digitizing a whole load of old telephone directories, which is perhaps marginal relevance to Doug members, but it's relevant to like looking at social and geographic mobility. And we're creating a range of data packs. We've now got new data packs that say in every year, when people move from local authority district to local authority district, do they move up market, down market, or hanging around market? We've got indicators of annual churn and population turnover. We've now got data packs of distances of residential moves when people move at sub-local authority scale. In actual fact, I think it's MSOA, or it may even be LSOA. The report finishes up with a list of publications. And Martin Callaghan point, sort of there's often been, we can't look at these. Well, now, oh yes, you can, because I think most or all of these are open access. And so if you're interested and Google, sort of certainly most of them on the list, you can get a peek at them. So that's it. That's me. Thanks very much for listening.
Thanks, Paul. I will liaise with you about dissertation and the Doug conference. I see no reason why we can't include that with the conference. I'll have a word with Tim and we'll sort out the agenda. And we'll do the similar to what we did last time online. It all worked. It ran smoothly. And we do have the Royal Society booked for next year, face-to-face, obviously. So hopefully we'll get that. And just to illustrate your point, Guy, who is representing Barclays, I met for the first time doing his dissertation at the Doug conference lots of years ago. And here he is representing an organisation, Doug. So
rising through the ranks.
Yeah, that's right. It's also worth shouting out a couple of other people who are in my first year of the programme have now kind of branched out as well. If we're talking about spreading the network. So Helen Parker, for example, she's now a manager at Gusto. Thomas Murphy, he's now pretty senior at the Crown Estate. And Matthew Pratt must be doing something right because he's just got a nice flash car and he's currently working at Javelin. So it's definitely worth keeping these people on our books.
Excellent. No better advert than that, really, is there? Good soundbite, actually. Well done. That's great. Okay. Thanks, Paul. Are there any